What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is now the second interview in celebration of Dominican Independence Month, and I have with me here ReyCruz. Ray, and welcome to my channel. I've been aware of who you are for a little bit. I've seen your comments on my videos before, and some of you may remember that Ray came onto one of my live stream panels. I believe it was the one about Latinos taking on extreme racial ideologies. You came onto the panel for a little bit. So I'm glad that you agreed to do this interview, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Ray's experience being Dominican, but also being raised within the American culture and just your perspectives on both. So, Ray, do you want to just begin by kind of telling us a little bit about yourself? I know that you also have a background in music and you kind of have a bit of a career there. So, do you want to get a little bit into that?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I want to say what's up to everybody checking out your channel. I hope it continues to grow so people spread the word and share. Yeah, like you said, my name is Ray. Artistically, I go by RyeTruth. So say RyeTruth. And my actual name is Ramon Thomas Cruz. Actually, Gratero Cruz. I'm sorry. I use Cruz because a lot of people it's easier to pronounce, but it's Gratero. It's a French name. And my great grandfather was from French. My father's grandfather, yes. So I was born in the Dominican Republic, and music has always been a part of my life. I was surrounded by music throughout my whole life, and older people listening to the older music, me listening to music from my times. It just created interest for all kinds of music and music from different eras. Migrated to the United States. I was about 9 years old, 8 or 9, from the Dominican Republic, and been in Miami ever since. I mean, I lived in New York for a little while, Washington Heights, but came back to Miami. In the music scene, how it happened was that I got absorbed by hip hop as soon as I got to the United States, being of that age, and living in Dominican community in Alapata. Alapata is basically right south of Liberty City, which is a predominantly black community in Miami, and it's kind of right north of Overtown, which is another very popular historical black community. Also, Little Haiti is nearby, and Wynwood, which is now Midtown, which was Wynwood was at the time a very big Puerto Rican community.
Okay.
So as soon as I got here, I just got absorbed by music, and I began to write lyrics even before I knew the language. I mean, I was in ESOL class learning English, and I was already putting rhymes together. So I had played with writing Spanish stuff, but it was really mostly English. However, being from Alapata, I knew a lot of Dominicans, and I knew some guys that were involved in illegal activities. So they wanted to put some money into music. So I began working with them in the streets as well as in music. So, but they were a Dominican. They were Dominican, so they formed a Dominican band in which I was the rapper. This was like a little before merengue house and that style came on. So I was already recording that stuff in merengue, and I became kind of part of the group. I learned how to do some merengue choruses and learned how to hold a note, and I just kind of became part of the group. Eventually, the group broke off. Some people went to jail. Some people, there's different things happened, and I just always continue rapping. However, because I had and I made those connections, and we got on radio and everything in the in the in the Dominican side of music, I continue recording things, and I've got to do recordings and write and tour with Los Hermanos Rosario. I was with them for like about a year. I recorded a song with them called Chica Boom. I was really
Okay.
young at the time. And also with Angelito Villalona, La Negra Chula. Angelito Villalona is my Jimbe's brother, very popular Dominican icon, which is Fernando Villalona, his brother. And a few more groups. I wrote some stuff for Sandy Papo, rest in peace, especially for Papo in 2 different songs. Rest in peace to both of them. They were both good friends, close friends at the time when they popped off. And and I wrote and I did some stuff with different other groups like Rumbanda and others that I can't really remember because it's not what we're going to talk about today. But basically, that's how it all started. I mean, I started writing rhymes as soon as I got here, and when I
Okay.
was 13 years old, my mom I asked for my birthday present was to go into a studio and record a demo. That's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, well, it seems like you got the chance to collaborate with quite a few big names there. So that's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. At least on the Dominican side, some pretty big names. Yeah, and I'm still
Yeah.
active. I'm still doing music, and I do very relevant music. So you guys can check out my IG page. Find me as RyeTruth. That's RYE and the word truth all together.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll definitely link the link to your Instagram on the video and in the pinned comment under the video. I've mentioned to you, I dabbled in music too, like 10 years ago. I recorded a few songs, but no,
I
I
heard
kind
you. I heard you on your IG, and actually, I was surprised because usually people that sound as good as you do pursue it. But I know there are exceptions. But you sound really good. You should we should collaborate sometime.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been a really long time, and I really disliked recording. I hated recording. I enjoy doing it as like a hobby, and I'll
Yeah,
post videos on my Instagram stories or whatever.
sound good. You keeping something away from the world.
I don't know. I don't think I was made for that life. I wasn't made for this singer life. I don't know.
Well, sometimes when you're really talented, you could create your own path in music. So
Hmm,
you don't have to look at it as the life. You could, if you enjoy recording, doing songs, you can just go that route.
that's
But
true.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now getting into your actual family background. So you mentioned you were born in DR, and what part of the country are you from? And where's your family like roots from?
I was born in Inver, Puerto Plata. Inver is a town in the region of Puerto Plata. So a lot of people know Puerto Plata is a city and it's very popular because it was the first a tourist spot in the Dominican Republic before all the new ones like all the newer ones like Punta Cana and Bávaro and all those. And Puerto Plata is also a region besides being a city, and there's a lot of small cities and towns that are around it that belong to the region. Like people may know Sosua, Cabarete, and
Yeah.
Montano, and others that you hear because they're tourist spots there. So that's the area that I came from.
Okay, so growing up in DR and also having grown up within the American culture, I know that you've mentioned to me before that you're very familiar with both. So, what would you say are some of your favorite aspects from the cultures, be it music, food, traditions, or things like that?
Well, all of the above. I mean, I consider myself very familiar with it. You might say, well, you've been here since you was really young and you went to school here, you finished elementary here, and then the rest of your schooling. But really, I came here, like I said, really young. But I visited Dominican Republic once, sometimes twice a year, all the way until I was like 17 years old, which
Mhm.
means that I continue to see the same people that I knew since I was a kid, my childhood friends, and grow with them and my family, and just be in Dominican Republic
Mhm.
frequently. So I stay familiar with the culture. Not only that, as an adult, I've lived in Dominican Republic 3 or 4 different times, maybe
Mm.
more. About a year at a time. I have a house over there, so I like going over there. So I'm very familiar. Like I've actually lived there. It's not like I'm here seeing it from this perspective. So I do like everything about my culture. I love everything about Dominican music. I like it's kind of like a love and hate relationship with the noise, with the constant noise over there. And so, you want to sleep a little late, but at 7 a.m., you have a neighbor with a loud music,
Yeah.
all kinds. You have street vendors, you have loud motorcycles,
Yeah.
cars who think they're
It's
in a
hard to sleep in over
music
there.
competition. Yeah, yeah, it is hard. So,
Mhm.
so it's a very vibrant place. I love the food. I love the music. I mean, I guess I'm naturally attracted to music. I guess it's in me, you know, because the everything that has to do with Dominican music, I love. Being from the north side, I love Perico Ripiao. I love bachata. I'm familiar with bachata ever since before it was famous. When I was a kid, before it popped off internationally, and I love merengue, which is to me, you know, those music like Perico Ripiao, merengue típico, and bachata and merengue, they're synonymous with being Dominican. To me, that's the
Yeah.
heartbeat of our country, you know.
Right.
And of course, I love everything that came after, like dembow and Dominican hip hop. And from the American culture, the same. Like I said earlier, I was absorbed by hip hop. I grew up listening to hip hop. I grew up listening to. I come from an era where hip hop was a little more cautious, and I grew into gangster rap, as they used to call it, and everything else that happened in the '90s. So, so to me, I was attending mostly black schools because the area where I went to school was Liberty City mostly. So I was absorbed by the culture, Miami-based culture as well, because we have our own branch of hip hop down here, which back then was bass, then it was called booty music. So I saw all of that take place, and now we have juke, what they call juke. So everything that just happened down here, I was involved in. So not only the music, but the whole culture. You know, going into a black school, into black schools, I knew the history. I studied the history. You know, surrounded by friends and people that were like family to me, that were not Dominican but black as well. So growing up here, I absorbed the whole culture as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can relate to that. Now, granted, I wasn't born in DR and I wasn't raised over there, but growing up, my parents did raise me in the culture, and they brought over all their brothers and sisters. So a lot of my extended family is here in this area. So in
Yes.
that sense, I kind of grew up in a little Dominican bubble just with my family and extended family. So I grew up, listening to the music, dancing, and eating food and all that. But once, I went outside of my house, of course, and went into school, you're exposed to American culture.
That's right.
And I had a similar experience in that the culture that I kind of just naturally drifted towards was the Black American culture. I suppose because I saw more of myself in them, like, okay, I look more like these people, and they naturally gravitated towards me. So, I befriended a lot of African Americans, and I grew up listening to like '90s R&B, and later some of the hip hop and stuff. So, yeah, I can relate to you in that sense. It kind of
No,
becomes like a part of you, also like a part of your culture. So it's like you have the Dominican aspect, but you have like this American aspect to you.
I mean, when you grow up in a certain area, listening to certain kind of music with friends that are like Jamaican, Haitian, Black, Bahamians, and all of the above, Trinidadian. You just it becomes part of you. You're like this melting pot in the hood, and some Latinos did not grow up in that environment, or for whatever reason they wanted to stay away from that environment, or whatever the heck. Maybe they had parents that told them stay away from certain people, and they cannot relate. But
Mm-hmm.
I think those people don't understand us. They don't understand that we have dual culture. They don't understand that the first maybe curse words that we learned, the when we first started dating, just things that are special to our life also have to do with their culture. So they want us to be 100% just one thing like they are, and we're not.
No, you're right. I mean, and I feel like that the fact that we do have like this dual culture or whatever, like it's undeniable. And it's funny because when here it's like, oh, I'm Dominican, but when I go to DR, it's like, oh, I'm American. The fact that I'm American definitely, like, you can tell. So you can't remove either side, from
Yeah,
your identity.
I definitely understand. I mean, even it's not my case because I was born there, so I never say I'm American. But somebody
Mhm.
will tell me that. Some of them will say it, will tell me that. Oh no, but tú eres americano, ya.
Yeah.
You're American. You know what I'm saying? And you know what's funny, that as Dominican as we are, like if I speak Spanish, it sounds 100% Dominican. But
Mm-hmm.
you go to DR and some people still know that your accent is not as thick as theirs, and it's
Mm.
crazy. They sometimes they pick up on the differences because, like I said, we're in the melting pot here, and we pick up other words from other cultures and people, even
True.
other Latinos. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Expression that they don't necessarily use over there. So if you don't
Right.
say I'm American over there, they'll say it for you sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because you foreign sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So I now want to move on to the next question. So in speaking to you before this, so you mentioned that you identify as an Afro-Latino. Now I'm not sure if you're aware, but at least online there has been a lot of uh, discussion as well as some disagreement as far as people choosing to identify or not identify with this term. I myself, I'm gonna admit, I've had my own back and forth with, the whole Afro Latino label. But I do want to ask you, what does that label mean to you, and why you identify that way?
Well, Afro Latino, I mean, it's obvious that I have some African ancestry, and just by looking at me, and I mean, understanding everything that went on with the whole transatlantic slave trade, and we are aware that we were our part of our ancestors were brought as slaves here. So I choose not to deny that part of me. You know what I mean? Like just coming here and knowing the history of this country and knowing how people have been treated just because they were slaves, how people have been um, dehumanized so that they could be taken advantage of since way back then. I choose to unite myself to that struggle because we're not so different. The same the same things that can affect Black Americans, the same things that could affect them coming from white supremacy could also affect me or my children that are people of color as well. So I choose to identify myself as Afro Latino because it's actually what I am now. In these days where we see that white supremacy is trying to stand up and grow again, I'm not going to side myself with them. I mean, it's just as we spoke outside of camera, it's just so obvious that we know the injustices are real. We know that white supremacists view Black people as inferior. We know that there's some systemic racism, and those things are also affecting us as Latinos, Afro Latinos, and just any other ethnic groups. So, what do? Do we unite with the white supremacist side, or do we unite with the side that's being systematically oppressed? So, to me, it's a given. I'm not going to unite with the oppressor. I'm not saying all white people are like that, but we understand what we're talking about here. So I definitely identify myself as an Afro Latino because I know how I look, I
Mm-hmm.
know my features, and it bothers me when other people look down on those features or make fun or criticize those features.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of leads into my next question. So you mentioned before to me how, at least within the Dominican community, you view all Dominicans the same, regardless of color, because of the shared nationality, the shared culture that all Dominicans have. So,
Yes.
a Black Dominican and a white Dominican can easily interact and connect just based on the fact that they're Dominican.
Yes.
But you do have an issue when, say, a lighter or white Dominican denies any privilege that they may have. And
Yes.
I believe that your point of view is that because things like colorism, featureism, and even racism, because they still exist, you feel like to deny that there's any privilege is not like to deny that these things exist.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, when I say privileges, let's say from a white Dominican, I mean mostly here in the United States, even though there is some privilege in the Dominican Republic as well, and that privilege comes through featureism and colorism. Like a lot of people actually do think that they're cleaner or better or better looking because of their European features or because of their white skin. So that's the privilege that I'm talking about in the Dominican Republic. Even though it's a deeper topic, but there is an elite class in the Dominican Republic that own everything that they're actually white, most of them, or a great percentage of them. So yeah, I mean, what I mean is by that is I look at all Dominican as my brothers and sisters, just because we're Dominican. So Dominican, it's a nationality, it's a culture. So as soon as you see a Dominican wherever you're at, it could be in the States or in DR. As soon as you see a Dominican and you realize that you guys talk the same, that you like the same things, you're gonna relate to that person, even if you're like really black and they're really white. It doesn't matter. You know, we're Dominican. We're gonna gravitate to each other, and that's my brother, that's my sister. But as soon as they deny that certain things are going on, you know, I don't really rock with them. You know, I understand that us Dominicans are multiracial, but if you as a Latino, whether Dominican or not, want to use your European side to continue to belittle dark-skinned people who have been oppressed since the transatlantic slave trade, then I don't rock with you. You know, if you, as a Dominican or Latino, consider yourself better than someone else because your European features, if you deny that African descendants have been marginalized and dehumanized because of their features since the days of slavery, then I don't rock with you because those things are really going on and they're real. You know, my whole thing with us Dominican is like, don't deny that the colorism is real, that people make fun of people just because of their African features sometimes and because of their coil hair, as we call it, pelo malo. Don't deny it. I mean, just denounce it. You understand what I'm saying? Like you can say, oh yeah, but I'm not one of those, you know, because we in a lot of ways, people who think like that are living in the past, like way in the past. And they don't understand that the world is moving forward. They think it's going to stay like that, but it's not. Eventually, it's going to catch up with the culture. It's going to catch up with the culture. So, and people, it is catching up. A lot of people criticize and think that all Dominicans are racist or colorist. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people consider that those things are not important, or they just sweep it under the rug, like, oh, that's nothing. But they think it's nothing because it's been done for generations, and no one really stands up about it. No one with a loud enough voice stands up against it.
Yeah. Well, as far as there being certain Dominicans that feel a sense of superiority or being, I don't know, they feel they're better because of, you know, them having more European features or whatever the case is. I mean, it does happen. There's some people on here on YouTube who should not be named that carry those sort of ideologies, and I definitely don't fuck with them. Excuse my language. But I definitely agree. I mean, colorism, featureism, they are issues. Texturism, if you want to include the hair stuff, those are issues that you know, exist in Dominican society. You know, they exist pretty much in any society where colonization and slavery occurred. So I don't think there's any point in, you know, denying that those things happen, because they definitely do. But like you said, I think it's instead of denying it, just denounce it. You know, that's, you know, something I try to do. And I think it's also important to show, though, that not all of us carry those type of ideologies. And I do think it's changing. And like you said, the people that do still hold that type of mindset, they're like stuck in the past. But, you know, stuff is changing, things are moving forward. And I do think more Dominicans are speaking out against it, at least a lot more than like maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago.
Of course, definitely. And I think some of it is linked to music. I mean, back in the days, that's just one of the things. There's a lot, because I think African American culture has a lot to do with it. Like the success of African Americans have broken a lot of stigmas. So if you see someone like LeBron James, even from back in the days, like Jordan, Michael Jordan, and other sports superstars and music stars, a lot of Dominican youth look just like Black Americans. You know, so to see them is to see themselves and to see something positive. So people, because of technology and the internet and everything, in real time, you see a lot of success of people that look just like you. So they beginning to feel comfortable in their skin. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
back in the days, it was a bigger taboo to have nappy hair in Dominican Republic. Nowadays, people just wear their nappy hair. So I credit Black Americans, believe it or not, for that. I mean, back in the days, when you look at in the 80s, most people, a lot of artists, a lot of merengue groups will put people that look a certain way on purpose to sing and to do in the chorus in the front as the main guys. You know, they had to have the hair a certain way. They have to be light skinned. They had to have certain features and be tall. Now, I'm not saying that was 100% because you know you just can't deny the talent of some people that were straight dark skinned but had a lot of talent. But you don't see that as much nowadays anymore because of urban music a lot and Dominican hip hop, which is a branch of black culture. They just feel comfortable in their skin, and you could tell. I think in the past it wasn't as much like that.
Okay. I agree. I do think there are a lot more Dominicans, particularly on the, the darker end with more Afro features that are, feeling more comfortable showcasing that, especially with the women. I feel like I definitely see that with the women and the whole hair thing because, hair is a big deal to Dominican women.
Yeah.
That's like, your crown or whatever. And I have noticed, that there was like a growing natural hair movement kind of going on down here too with the women. As far as like back in the day, I mean, I wasn't alive, obviously, but I mean, I've seen pictures of like my dad and my uncles rocking afros and stuff back in like the 70s and 80s. But I guess there's more of an acceptance of that though now. And
Yeah.
I see guys, girls rocking braids and more, I guess, afro styles. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
well, a lot of people are rocking afros, but if you investigate, it was highly criticized by a great portion of the popularity in Dominican Republic. You know, it's like, oh, that hair, that ugly hair, that afro, cut it off. You know what I mean? But at a lot of times, people who criticize things like that wouldn't criticize people who have straight hair with long hair because of the stigma that has been created that our hair or black hair is ugly, like I mentioned before. You know, like I understand if someone doesn't want to put themselves in the category as Afro Latino, like I totally, especially a Dominican, I totally understand because there's different races. Some people say triracial, but I think it's even more than that. I mean, there's evidence of people coming in the days of Christopher Columbus, even from India, came with the conquistadors from India. At some point, we had people from a big influence from the Middle East in our race, believe it or not. And
Mhm.
of course, some native. I know most of the natives were wiped out, but there was a lot of intermixing before they were completely wiped out. So it's still in our
Yeah.
blood, in a lot of us blood. So I understand, like, okay, not Afro Latino because you're not 100% just Afro, but when you look a certain way in a country like United States, so we're talking about dual culture. So we're talking about culture in the United States and the Dominican Republic. In a country like here, when you look a certain way, you're going to be treated a certain way. You're going to be treated as you're black. You know, they don't care you're mixed. They don't care. They're not aware, or they don't care about your complex compound of race that you come from. They don't care about that stuff. They really don't. They're just going to look at you a certain way and profile you.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's one thing I've always been very aware of. I mean, regardless of what I identify as, I've always been perceived to be a black person. Now it could be a black person of a different ethnicity. I get Ethiopian a lot, whatever. But yeah, I've always been seen as a black girl, racially black. So in that sense, that's just the way the society was formed and how people view things. So I mean, I've said this on my channel before. I think especially for us Latinos, Hispanics that are darker skinned, especially if you're male. I mean, I feel like you need to have that awareness. Like, not okay, even if you don't have to identify as black necessarily, but just be aware this is how society is going to view you, and they're going to treat you as such.
That's
So,
right. That's right. It's definitely ignorance And like I said, it goes back to the days of oppression, to the days of when white supremacy just began to teach something. They didn't necessarily believe that black people were inferior. They just taught it so they could get away with slavery. So all those ideas that our features have to be more European, it's something that's really old. It's really obsolete, and a lot of us in Latin America still live by that. We actually think that's beauty. We don't. It's just like that guy. Remember off camera, I spoke to you about that guy, Patricia Casablanca.
Uh-huh.
The guy said that Dominicans, that we're all ugly because we have
Yeah.
big noses, because we have nappy hair, because of our skin. I assume when he said skin, he meant that we're colored or something, or I don't know if he meant burnt skin, because we're under the sun over there the whole time.
Que nosotros, atención, nosotros los dominicanos somos una raza fea. Mi mamá, que murió, era lucida, no era bonita. Mi abuela, fea. Mi abuelo, feo. Yo soy feo. Mis hijas son feas. Osuna, usted feo también. Nosotros somos feos, somos una raza ordinaria. Somos una raza de boca fea, de piel fea, de nariz fea, y la mayoría tenemos pelo feo. Somos feos, entonces yo no puedo decir que nosotros los dominicanos somos bonitos.
But and you know what's ironic? That he said, study history, don't be dumb. Study history. Trujillo, which was a dictator, kind of like Dominican Hitler almost. He said Trujillo brought white people to mix us in because we're so ugly. But what he doesn't understand, he's talking about history, and what he doesn't understand, that the whole idea that because you have big lips or big nose is being ugly, he doesn't understand that that's even a deeper history. That he's a victim of not knowing that, and he's telling people, you guys are ignorant. We need education. But he's a victim of the lack of education himself. He was criticizing people by their features. I mean, you know how prehistoric that is? You know how
I was surprised.
An idea that is?
Yeah, like when you sent me that video and I watched it, I was like, what? I mean, wow, just the way he was talking and just dogging Dominicans, but he pointed out the few towns and Cibao where the people are whiter, and kind of implying the women from those areas are like the prettier ones and this and that. And I was like, what in the internalized racism is going on here?
People really think that it's natural to think. A lot of people, I'm not saying most Black Americans don't think that way, even though even amongst Black American, colorism exists and featureism. We all know that. We're aware of that. But I'm saying mostly outside the United States, people really think that European features is beauty. But they don't understand that they've been taught that for generations. They've been taught through movies, through commercials, through propaganda, in magazines, and whoever the hottest model is, they don't understand that that's been pushed into you. So they don't understand that if you're born in a place, in one of the places in one of the countries in Africa, and you're born amongst people that look the same, you don't really compare beauty to white people. And I mean, I've seen videos where some kids are afraid of white people when they see them for the first time. They don't think, oh, it's a beautiful angel, like it's been sold to us that angels are white and whatever. So a lot of people don't get it. And that's why, because that's another reason why I consider myself Afro-Latino, because I fight against those things. I see the oppression and I'm against it. I'm totally against it.
So when you speak of going against like white supremacy and all that, so you're not only speaking about like systemic racism, but you're also talking about denouncing the white supremacist views and ideologies, right? That come into like racism and colorism and featureism and texturism and all that, like denouncing all that too. Like the microaggressions that we sometimes still face. That's what you're implying, right? That we should denounce that, fight against that.
Definitely. I mean, even with that guy that I mentioned that did that post, you will see people commenting on, because different people have posted, but in one of the posts I saw people commenting, yes, we're ugly, but we have our thing, Dominican Man, we have that thing that people like, that women like, even though I'm ugly, even though my hair is bad, pelo malo. You understand what I'm saying? That It's so in them that they don't understand. They don't understand how much victims they are. And it's okay, you know, if you want to be um, confident, even though people call you ugly, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is we have to realize that we've been victims of lies. I mean, Spaniards had a chart, the casta chart, where they would put themselves on top and put whoever was mixed with them second, and then whoever was mixed with Indian natives and Africans third, and it goes down and down all the way to the pure African and pure Indians or natives. You know what I mean? So we definitely been lied to. So I think that a whole generation of young people, in order to be better and have better self-esteem, should know who they are and where they come from. I'm not proud of what the Spaniards did in the past. And let's just talk about Dominican Republic right now. I'm not proud of what the Europeans did in Dominican Republic. I'm not. But I'm proud of those African slaves and those Tainos who stood up repeatedly and fought against them without having weapons, without having weapons as sophisticated as the muskets that the Europeans had. And they fought repeatedly until eventually the country became a mulatto country, a mestizo and mulatto country, because we fought them all the way, we fought back all the way to the end. So I'm not proud of what the Spaniards did, but I am proud of what the colored people did, which are the Africans and the natives. To me, it's common sense. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I can't deny that I have European blood in me, but I'm not proud of that side. The world is moving forward. It's time to face the truth.
All right. So moving on to the next question, and these questions are all based on conversations that we've had outside of you. Okay, so you expressed before that you feel that sometimes Black Americans are wrong about how they judge other African descendants. However, you feel that other African descendants throughout the diaspora should consider standing up to white supremacy as much as Black Americans do. And then you also mentioned how you feel that immigrants that come to this country, they want to benefit off of the things that this country has to offer, but they don't want anything to do with the negative things like, fighting against financial inequality or, systemic racism, which I think there is some truth to that. I think for the most part, a lot of immigrants that come here, they come here with a specific goals a lot of times, which is to work, make money, and then go back home. So a lot of times they don't really either feed into, or they kind of, what's the word? Like they distance themselves from the issues going on here. Like they don't really want to partake in it or try to stand up against it because they kind of feel like, it doesn't really affect me. So what are your thoughts on that? Or you want to elaborate on how you view that?
Yeah, basically what you said. I mean, I think that sometimes some Black Americans are wrong the way they view other African descendants of the diaspora, because they don't realize, the people who make that mistake, they don't realize that we don't have exactly the same background. I mean, we have the same background as far as coming in ships and being slaves. But slavery here took a wild turn. It took a way left turn. I mean, no slavery is good, but you understand what I mean. It was just carried on and on and on and on systematically until today. Beyond colorism, which is the main thing, and featureism, which is the main thing in DR and in places like America, it's horrendous the things that happen here. So they don't get it. They think that other people that are African descendants of other country are sellouts. I'm saying some people think that way. When just because we're friends, buddy, or intermarried with people that look straight European or mostly European, but they don't get that we come from another culture where we're brothers and sisters, where we intermarried really early, where slavery was abolished really early. And because it was a different situation. So sometimes they don't get, the way we can trust someone else that looks totally different from us and because we just view him as our fellow countrymen. It's totally different from here. But I get their point. Now, on the side of the Latinos, like you were saying, I think we should stand up to white supremacy views even more. And to ignore white supremacy is to further push it, because to deny it is totally ignorant. What we have, I mean, it's obvious that it's happening, that it's been going on. I mean, they say a lot of groups say that themselves, you know what I'm saying? Like the Proud Boys and people like that, they will say themselves that we want to preserve the white race, or we're superior, or we want to do this and that. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that Latinos or Afro Latinos or people of color should unite more to the struggle of Black people, because in reality, they're in the forefront of that. They've always been, you know, since before the civil rights movement. And all struggles that Black Americans have been through benefit us as people of color. It really does. So I think we should be more united to their cause. We don't have to do it without understanding. But I'm sure if you're a sensible person and you do some research and go deep into history, you understand that they actually are fighting for the rights that this country boasts about giving, but doesn't always live up to its words. So what else? About us Latinos, we're very hardworking people. We are. Dominicans, extremely hardworking. Many Americans don't realize the level of poverty that a lot of us come from. I mean, dirt floors, walking barefooted, bathing in rivers, living without tap water most of the time. And in some areas, living without electricity half of the time. They don't understand the struggles and how severe is the poverty that we come from. So a lot of Latinos come here and we want to just better ourselves. Our goal is to build that house, to help our families back home. Our goal is to better ourselves. You know, here to better yourself is to go from low to from minimum wage or earning low or living in the hood to something better. For someone who comes like from the Dominican Republic, a bad neighborhood, a poor neighborhood, or a small town, to better yourself, it's a way bigger thing. It's like going from here to Mars. You know what I mean? It's like really coming to being able to own a car, to own a nice house. Those things in Dominican Republic are not so accessible. That is why you go to the Dominican Republic and you see 6 people in a motorcycle, because not everyone could own a freaking car. That's why you see people with babies, with newborns, and 3 kids on a motorcycle. And you come from here with all your privilege. I'm not saying white privilege now. I'm just saying American privilege, you know, thinking, oh my God, how can they do that? They have no other way to get to where they're going. They can barely afford a motorcycle. They're paying for that motorcycle monthly. You know what I mean? So we come from those extreme poverty conditions. So we come here and we just want to better ourselves. And we're hardworking people. We make it. We do it. But at the same time, we don't want to take place in we want the benefits from this country, but we don't want to get involved in the social issues. We want the pretty, but not the ugly. We want the good, but not the bad. And I don't consider that fair. If we as colored people are able to come here and be treated with a certain level of respect, because it's, you know, equality has gradually, too slow, been getting been growing. But if we benefit from that, it's because of the sacrifices that Black people have made. So I don't think that we should distance ourselves from their struggle, whether we consider ourselves Afro-Latino or not, whether we consider ourselves Black or not, because really Black is an American term that the Europeans created. Because in Africa there were different countries and different tribes. You know, that's a whole nother conversation, and they view themselves as different. So, but whether we consider ourselves Black or not, it's just, to me, it's common sense. You know, you're supposed to love your brother. You know, you're supposed to love your neighbor. And to me, it's just common sense that if something is going on, to be involved in it, for the better of humanity. And to me, it's common sense that if their struggles have opened doors for us to align ourselves with their struggles. I don't mean you have to align and agree with every radical idea out there, but definitely you should look into it to see how you can help. Because those Dominicans and those Latinos that are people of color, like me, and even way darker, a lot of us are having kids, and those kids will fall victims to white supremacy in this country. So to me, like I said before, it's just a given.
Okay. So, well, I do want to ask. So, I agree with everything you're saying, and that makes sense. But I do wonder: do you feel though that at least in this current age, even with all the racial tensions going on, that people of color are being oppressed as much as maybe they once were? Or do you ever feel like maybe immigrants have a certain privilege that maybe Black Americans don't? Because I hear people say that as well.
Thank you for mentioning that, and remind me if I veer from. But your question just reminded me of something. Another thing that I was going to say that pertains kind of to what you asked me in your last question, our last that I was answering a few minutes ago. A lot of us as Latinos, we don't have the history that Black Americans have. And if you're watching this program and you just think the history is Martin Luther King, a little bit of slavery and whatever, you need to go deep into the story to see how people were used as human experimentation, to see how they were dehumanized, and they was taught that they were less than human so that they could get away with things. How people were deprived of privileges till recently. So the thing is that a lot of us, even if we're blacker than black, our skin color wise, we don't relate to the struggle of Black Americans because they carry a heavy history, a heavy burden of their history. So they have a history with white Americans. So we don't. So if we come here and a racist white person, because of our skin tone, calls us an N-word, we don't care. We brush it off and we stay focused and keep working and keep making money, because we got to send money back to DR, because we got to build a house in DR, because we just got to make our kids better and give them a better future. But see, it doesn't affect us, so it affects them. That's why sometimes we could come here and even better ourselves more than some Black Americans. So we don't see, we don't hear it, we don't care. We don't care if some people are racist. Some of us just don't care. Like, whatever, that doesn't affect me, because there's no history. We are not the one. It's not our grandparents that were hung. It's not our grandparents that were treated. That if you're walking on a sidewalk and a white person is coming towards you, you have to put your head down or even cross the street. Till recently, you understand what I'm saying? That to a few years ago. So. And what I mean by a few years ago, I mean 50s, 60s. You know what I mean? So yeah. To me, that's not too long ago. So I understand why some Latinos could get ahead, but like I said, we have benefited a lot from the struggles and the sacrifices that Black Americans have made. So and I probably did veer from your last question, which was
it's sometimes like Latinos or immigrants that come here actually have like a certain bit of privilege, even over Black Americans. But you kind of answered that basically with what you just said, because like you said, we don't, well, not we, because I was born here, but like my parents, for example, they didn't have that history or that racial baggage or whatever towards white people, because they grew up in a very different society. So they never grew up with that mentality of, oh, they're oppressed or whatever.
Exactly. We look at the white man as a helper. As we look at this country as a white man's country. That is what's been in put in our minds. Like, the real American person is the white person. But we don't understand that there's different Americans. Is white Americans, Black Americans, Native Americans. But we view as the European American as the real American, because that's how they sell the United States. That's how they have sold it in the past. I know it's getting better, but you know, that's what they have sold. So we look at him as a helper. Oh, the white man helped me get out of this poverty, but the white man has been oppressing this black people for a lot of years. So we come here and the white man see us as more compliant, if you will, as more humble, as we're willing to shut up when they say shut up, as we're willing to be humble and put our head down when even when a cop comes and breaks the law during a traffic stop in the way they treat us or search us. But we're willing to be more compliant because we view them as this, or that they own this country, and when the black people own this country too. As a matter of fact, they help mostly build it. So
Mhm.
you understand what I'm saying, right? But
Yeah.
we don't see it that way. It reminds me of the conversation that I mentioned to you that I had with a white guy, white American in a barbershop.
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions. Actually, I think that was my next question. So you can get into that. The white guy and the Cuban guy.
I ask my own questions to this show. This is my show now. So anyway, well, the thing is, when the whole COVID shutdown happened and everything began to open slowly, barbershops begin to open here in Miami with a certain level of limitation of how many customers you can have inside, whatever. So me being Dominican, I learned how to cut hair because my my old job was still closed and I needed work, and I started cutting hair. And
Mhm.
I had this customer, and he came in, white guy, you know, and he started talking. He was my client at the moment, so I didn't want to be rude. And you know, I just kind of let him talk because I could be very confrontational. Sometimes I could be very patient and just let people talk and talk. So I was trying to, you know, be in the barbershop and be, you know, respectful to my client, but he just started talking against Black Lives Matters and how, you know, how Trump was the guy, and he wasn't rude or anything. He was a young guy, as a matter of fact. You know, he was I don't know, maybe mid to late 20s, and he told me he had some background in the military, and you know, he was a big guy, and he was bragging about him being in South Beach, visiting Miami and meeting all these girls. So he wanted to look nice because he gets a lot of girls and this and that. But at the same time, he was talking some Christianity stuff, and he just started going off on Black Americans. Like, I don't know what's the deal, and with the what he said about Native Americans. I mean, you know, they're trying to make it like this and like that, but we, you know, it was war. Like back in the days, if you won the war, that's it. We won, and that's it. You know, without saying that they stole the land. It was no war. There was
Mhm.
no declared war or
Yeah.
whatever. So he was just trying to whitewash everything. And
Mhm.
he told me, and he knew I was Dominican already because he asked me when I came in. There was a flag in the barbershop, of course. And he said, but see, I don't get it. You guys, you Dominicans, you're black too. I mean, you look no different than what a lot of these black people look like. And but I don't understand why you guys are so different. I mean, why are you so different? And Dominicans are so nice, and when you talk to them, and they're so whatever. And I told them, no, me knowing how much white people love animals, I told them, well, if you have two dogs and you treat one, you know, you let him in the house, you let him, you give him benefits, you treat him nice, but you have another one and you always keep him in a dark, locked room, and you never let him outside, and you mistreat this dog and you abuse this dog. Do you think those two dogs are going to be the same? I mean, his eyes just open wide, like he just had a revelation. I don't understand, you know, how come,
Mhm.
you know, he's never thought about it before. And I told him, see,
Mhm.
us Dominicans, we don't have any beef with you. You know what I'm saying? But black people have been systematically, historically, been oppressed and dehumanized by you guys. So why do you expect for them to be nice like us, or to just walk around like we don't have a care in the world? So
Mm.
he was stuck. He really began to stutter, and because he went into the Christianity thing, and he started, because you know, since the beginning of the whole slave trade, white people have been saying that blacks are the descendants of the son of Ham or whatever. You know, that
Yeah.
verse in the Bible. so they're cursed to be to serve food and whatever. So because he spoke of the Bible and about morals and principles and whatever, I told him, if you go back to the Bible, um, the, the people that Jesus Christ mostly criticized were the Pharisees, and the Pharisees were the most religious people.
Yeah.
And what Christ criticized about them was that they considered themselves to be holier and better because they were more religious. So the way, be very careful, because it's a thin line between being a good Christian and a Pharisee. And he had no answer. He literally began to sweat and his voice began to shiver. This is a real story. And trust me, I'm not even remember certain details of the story, but it gets more interesting. So that's how I view it. A lot of us Latinos, we don't get it. We don't get it. We don't know the history. We know the whitewash part of the history, and we know a little bit of the history, but we don't get it. We don't know to the extent that Black Americans have to the extent of suffering and oppression that they've gone through.
Yeah, so besides the conversation with the white guy, you said you also had a conversation with a Cuban guy. That was
But
something similar along those lines, right?
yeah, definitely. Well, it was a Cuban guy. As we all know, recently Cubans have been famous for voting for Trump and supporting Trump and all those things, right? And we all know a lot of Cubans view themselves as white, as pure Spaniards and whatever. A lot of them, not, I'm not saying all, and I'm not saying that all Cubans supported Trump, but I had this conversation with this Cuban Trump supporter, which happens to be white at work, and and we don't share the same shift, but recently we had to share the same shift because of some changes that happened at work. And before we were in the same shift, we kind of had some heated discussions about the whole, Black Lives Matter, Trump, black, white, and all that. And it's always the same. He stands his ground, I stand my ground, right? I hold my ground. But recently we were working the same shift, and I was able to break down to him, this is another privilege that a lot of us Latinos have, as Latinos that are, especially those who want to be allies of the struggle of Black people in this country and not being treated fairly, is that since we don't have that stigma, we are able to talk about these things from a point of view, as it's not the term that I'm looking for. I don't know if it's middleman, but from like
Like an objective.
common ground, yeah, with some Latinos, you know what I mean? And we're able to take some of that racist crap they say and kind of stay calm, even though our blood boils inside, but still get a point across to them. And and I let him say what he wanted to say. We're having a conversation, but I told him, look, do you know what redlining is? He didn't know. So I went into a little bit of the story of how President Roosevelt, I think it was, FDR, that he with the whole, after the Great Depression, with the whole Social Security thing was first formed, and they decided that that's when the whole middle class was created, right? And Social Security and every American could retire with Social Security and live a decent life. Well, he began to he has something to do with telling the banks that the banks could give loans to every American people, so that they could buy a house, except Black people. So I told him, that owning a house in this country, what it represents: generational wealth. If your great-grandfather, if your grandfather own a house, that's wealth that you pass down. Owning property helps you buy more real estate, helps you rent, it helps you refinance. It makes it stable after you pay it and leave it over to your kids. They could start a business with selling that house, or they could just have no rent, and Black people have not enjoyed that, of those privileges for the most part. So I explained to him about redlining, how it was easy to exclude Black people because the United States government told them, except the people in the red areas. They had a map. The red areas were the Black areas, because it was during segregation. So I basically broke that down to him and told him, see how they've been kept from certain things. And do you know that redlining still exists today? So because school funding is tied to the property value of the homes in that neighborhood, mostly white schools or schools in richer neighborhoods get thousands of dollars of funding more per student than black schools or poor schools or schools in the hood. So then you have generationally kept the people poor, kept them in the dark with less education. And we all know that lack of education is tied in with crime. Because if you're poor and you need money, you need to get by somehow. If you're being discriminated against at work, and if you're being treated different, and if you have this stigma in your mind, and if you're if you're watching all this riches on TV, you want to get ahead as well, right? Or just if you want to feed your family. So I explained that to him. So now the neighborhoods are being, are undereducated and now are over policed, and you have all this tension. And now the victim, which is the black people, are beginning to be criticized because of that. Oh, but look at all the crime they commit. Look at all this. Look at all that. It's been proven that white people and black people, there's no difference in the percentage of how much drugs they use or how much crime gets committed. But still, there's a stigma. It's a poor thing. You know what I'm saying? It's a financial thing. So once I broke that down to him, and I also broke down some of the human experimentation thing, or how they use slaves as guinea pigs just to do open surgeries with no anesthesia and other things, he totally changed his point of view. And I had argued with him before. So it's all a matter of information. If you're open-minded enough to go into some things, you will probably change your mind. So he totally changed his point of view. And he told me, wow, it's just different when you talk to somebody that knows what you know and the way you're telling me, because you already know these things. And that's what happened with that Cuban guy.
Well, that's good that you were able to enlighten him about those things. And the whole thing about generational wealth, that's one thing that I feel like sometimes doesn't get brought up enough when people have these conversations. And it's such like a big factor when you really think about it. And like you mentioned, I mean, that's one reason, or probably a big reason actually, why white people have been able to kind of stay on top, because they already had this system set up to help them build wealth, get property, and continue to pass that on generation after generation. But black people didn't have that privilege afforded to them, and it's something that is still affecting a lot of the community today. And not just that, but I feel like Hispanics that have been here for generations, like I feel like Hispanics, a lot of them aren't really thinking about creating generational wealth either. So I feel like people of color in general, that's something that we need to actually take into consideration and think of, like, what am I going to provide for my generations to come? I mean, I feel like at least now at this point in history, we are at a better place where we can actually do that without too much hindrance, and again,
it comes from generational poverty. If all you have is to get by, you're not preoccupied with leaving wealth. You're preoccupied with paying that next rent and buying that next meal.
Right.
And you get caught up in that cycle. So it all started with white supremacy. So it goes back to that, to me.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point too, though. How can you think about building generational wealth if you're literally like living paycheck to paycheck, worrying about how you're gonna leave or eat the next day? So it's a vicious cycle, man. It's a really vicious cycle.
And it takes a toll mentally, and it takes a toll emotionally. So a lot of people, well, when you're poor, you can work yourself up. Look, not everyone is able to, under certain conditions, build an empire from the bottom up. And it's proven, because we see it. How many people that come from way under make it all the way to the top? It's harder because life takes place. And like I said, you get caught up in paying bills, and you get caught in just trying to make it to the next day or to the next month. So it's just harder to get up from that deep hole.
Right.
Something that we were saying earlier about how the whole colorism thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have even been told, like there's been different people from different nationalities that had that. I mean, I've heard this from people telling me, like face to face, that black people, and when I say black, I don't just mean black Americans, like the black race worldwide, are
Mm-hmm.
inferior because look how much more advanced the white people are in the United States, and look how rich they are. It's because they're smarter. It's because they're better, and they don't understand that it's because this things that we talking about, the systems have been put in place. They have gotten away with that. It has nothing to do with them being better. It does,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, if you study history, even in Africa, when certain um, explorers got to Africa, there was a Portuguese explorer. What was his name? The Corte. I forgot his name right now. That he recorded that when he got to Africa, I believe, which was the east side. I forgot what city. He saw stone, tall stone buildings. That's like buildings, like almost skyscrapers. And the people knew as much about nautical charts and compasses, like to navigate the compass, as the Portuguese knew. That they were, and nautical, I think they call charts, is basically sea maps that they're very intricate. It tells you where the sea changes and where is deeper, and where conditions are worse. And Africans already knew this. This is before the transatlantic slave trade. But
Mm-hmm.
other Europeans that came to Africa ignore that. They didn't want to recognize that. They just did, as propaganda, they begin to promote the idea that all Africans were savages and that they were inferior, and and,
Mm-hmm.
and not admitting that there have been civilizations in Africa, old civilizations that had intricate roads, aqueducts, buildings, and art, music, and all sorts of things. So it's not a matter of being inferior. It's a matter of people taking advantage of a situation and
Mm-hmm.
putting themselves on top and keeping themselves on top.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how, especially when considering like the state of, say, West Africa or whatever, although there are some very advanced parts, but people always bring up, when it comes to like the poor areas, like why are they still so poor, blah blah blah, and like you said, a lot of people try to say,
Well,
oh, it's because the black race is inferior, but nobody has to take into account the fact that those areas were exploited and have
but
been for
even
centuries.
some parts of the Americas with the natives, they wanted to give credit to the aliens before they gave credit to the natives. That,
Right.
that some of these buildings were
Yeah.
so far ahead in
Yeah.
architecture than Europe in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
way far ahead. And the roads that they had, the brick roads and everything. So let's
Yeah.
just give credit to the aliens because this savages couldn't have done it. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Sorry. So it's so freaking obvious. And when you go back to Africa, what happened there? See, there was slavery in Africa, but if you study, and I don't know if you want to go down this road, but if you study, most slavery in Africa was because of one tribe taking over another rival tribe. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of slaves were people that were orphans, didn't have a mother or a dad, or just servants. But see, a lot of these slaves have privileges, and it's even written. I forgot which king was it that wrote, "You should not treat a slave um, like the load that they carry, something like that, but treat them as an equal." So slaves were more like people that were servants because of the financial class, or criminals too. If you broke the law repeatedly, you would work as a sentence. You would be a slave as a sentence. So it had to do with different things, but there's proof that it wasn't the type of slavery that happened here, with hanging people and dehumanizing them and all of that, just for propaganda. Now, when a lot of Africans ended up selling slaves, it was slaves that I said were criminals or that were their subjects. But the money that they were offering for slaves, it was so good that a lot of Africans went overboard and began to sell other Africans. But remember, they never sold people that were from their own tribe. Remember what I said, they look at themselves different. It's like if you're Nicaraguan, you don't see yourself the same as Hondurans, even though they're right next door. You don't see Colombians, they don't see themselves as Venezuelans. So there were different people, and actually a lot of them look different, even though they were dark colors. Some of them were just had different features. You know what I'm saying? Even though their skin was dark. So my point is that some of these people who sold these slaves to these Europeans, it got so out of hand that the demand got so big the Europeans they kept coming back and offering more money. So some people just in Africa became mercenaries, and just people even that hadn't broken the law, who didn't fit the profile of a slave, they just started selling some people, and that brought the population of men and of young men and young people, period, down in Africa. So that opened door for Europe to take over Africa, because now there were it was thousands of slaves leaving Africa every year. So by the time Europe came and took Africa without respecting the difference of religion, of region, of races, of belief, they just kind of came and make cities where different tribes were involved. But they were able to do that because there was thousands and thousands, a couple of generations of less of men that were there present at the moment. So it just gets deep. I'm sorry if I went too much somewhere else, but
No, I mean that's good to know. I didn't know that. I didn't know those details.
Oh yeah, I'll share them later.
Okay. All right. So, kind of switching gears a little bit, I want to get to your thoughts on what's currently going on, more specifically within the Dominican community or in DR. I know that you travel back and forth a lot, so I'm sure you witness whatever's going on over there, or at least you hear about it. So, what would you consider to be some of the biggest issues going right now in Dominican society, as far as, say, education is concerned, or socially, politically? I know it's kind of a broad question, but among those three things, is there anything that stands out to you that you feel is something that needs to be further addressed or improved?
But definitely, I have a passion for education. There's a lot of things, but as I mentioned to you before, education. I think everything boils down to education. If young people are educated, there'll be less of what we're talking about, which is less likely to fall victims or to be on either side of colorism, or the victim or victimizer. I think if people are more educated, you'll see less things going on in DR, and people being able to create more riches. And because I think it all comes from the government over there. I believe the government is more able to do more about education. But what you see in DR is like, especially when you go deeper into like neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods and smaller towns and on the countryside, is that you have these schools, but when sometimes you speak to the teachers, they don't even themselves sound like they know a lot, or they don't even speak correctly. So what you see over there is that when the government gets in power, a lot of people that help that government, that help what do you call it when a government is running for race? I'm sorry, I forgot that word. A lot of people who help that government in there when they're running. So I totally forgot the word. It left my mind right now. But to help them win the race, they basically get jobs. They get connections with the government. So it's not the people that are able to teach that are teaching. It's the people who have the hookups to get that job. So that's an ongoing thing, generation, and it happens in other areas too. But I have a passion for education in DR, so it's a thing that has been going on for generations. So we just get more ignorant and less educated as time goes by. So we have a very narrow look. When you compare it to internationally, we have a very narrow look. We're stuck over there. We barely know how to speak our own language, or read and write our own language. And I'm not saying all of us, you know what I mean? But it is a rampant situation, and much less know what's going on outside the world, with how the world is progressing. And maybe that has to do with us preserving so much that colorism, because we just kind of disconnected sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember reading somewhere last year about how for one, the literacy rate being quite high down there, and then when you couple that with the fact that there's also a high number of people living below the poverty line,
Yes.
you couple those things together, and I guess when people don't really have a way to get out of that situation, it just keeps
Yes.
them there.
Yes.
And it's not like people are going to stop having kids and procreating, so the number of people in that group also continues to grow.
Exactly.
And as far as what you said about people obtaining certain positions based on who they know and like their connects, that's something I've heard multiple people say too. That's like a really big thing down there, especially if you're connected to the government. I have an uncle who's like connected to the PLD, so of course he's one of my richer uncles. I don't know how he's faring now that they're not in office anymore, but yeah, that's something I've heard multiple people say, that for a lot of people it's who you know and
Yes.
the connects that you make. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean,
definitely.
it's an
So
unfortunate
I
situation.
think it keeps the country down, and it works against the poor people, which is a majority. We come from countries that are actually rich in agriculture, and sometimes it's some minerals, metals, but everything's being sold by the government to bigger countries like the United States. And
Mm,
so we don't, our riches are not kept in the country.
yeah.
So the whole financial situation over there affects the economy being bad affects education. And I think we definitely need more education. I mean, it's rampant. It really is. And it's common to go into YouTube, into a comment section where it's mostly Dominican and people misspelling everything. You know what
I'm
I
not gonna
mean?
lie. I have kind of noticed that.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
I'm not proud of that, but I think we're very intelligent people though. We're naturally smart. We strive. We make a situation happen. We get money. We work hard, but we need that education. And
Hmm.
that same guy that I mentioned earlier, Christian Casablanca, he mentioned that earlier, but see the way he delivered it, it's like we're inferior. The way he delivered, like in a condescending tone. I heard him.
Right.
I heard him defending it on another post. I saw him saying, "Well, if you love someone, you tell them the truth. If someone armpit smells bad, you tell him, yo, come here, you smell." But saying, "Yo, come here, your armpit smell. Maybe you can go put some deodorant before someone else notices." It's not the same as saying, "Your armpit smell, and you ain't
Yeah.
because your armpit smelled." The way he said it,
Hmm.
it was way. So I agree with him with that, but he's also a victim of that lack of education because of his
Yeah.
colorism, preacherism.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, and for the most part, Dominican is just fun. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of fun, a lot of
Yeah.
party, a lot of music, and another thing that goes on in Dominican Republic, which is foreign to other places, is a lot of women still depend on men. A lot of women still depend on men. So they use their looks, their sexuality to better themselves. It's a real thing. You know what I mean? I mean, the girl could be 19 and the guy could be 50 years old. And if he's gonna take care of her, or if she thinks there's something there, she's gonna ride with dude because she's trying to get a house built, she's trying to get a car, she's trying to get a business built so that she could be okay. And if she's not that smart or not looking that much into the future, she's at least trying to get some nice shoes and her nails and hair did to go to the club.
Hmm.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So you see that a lot in DR. So the economy is so bad that women still depend on men. Hence, other things that happen like violence against women and all those
I
things
was going to
come,
ask you about that.
yeah, come from that definitely. I see
Mm-hmm.
that all my life. You know what I mean? Like you can't sweep it under the rug. It's a lot of violence against women in the Dominican Republic, and I don't want to come here and act like I'm talking all bad about them. I'm super proud of being in the Dominican Republic, but I'm not going to sweep anything under the rug that I can prove that is true. That I'm saying is true. We need to do better because we are good people, and we are known to be loving, friendly, happy people. But we really need to do better because the world is moving forward, and a lot of us are in this bubble. You know what I mean? Outside, and we just little by little, if we continue to stay behind, we're gonna look like the weirdos.
Mm, yeah. As far as the violence against women, what would you say? What do you think are some of the contributing factors to why that happened, and why some men abuse their power in those situations?
It's because the economy. I mean, in a country where it's a dog eat dog environment when it comes to getting money,
Mm-hmm.
it's no secret that men, for the most part, are physically stronger. So if you have to commit crimes, if you have to be a hitman, if you have to be a gangster, if you have to sell drugs, or if you have to even do a physical job, that construction, or being a trucker who has to load heavy things into his truck or whatever, men are gonna get ahead, and men are more viciously violent than women naturally. If we have to protect, to go out there and get it, to face everything that you have to face in a country where there's not so much security, men are going to definitely get ahead because
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of opportunity. There's not as much opportunities for women. There's a lot. Don't get me wrong. Women have a lot. I'm not saying it's like way back in the days, but for the
Yeah.
most part, men thrive. You know what I'm saying? They get ahead quicker because of a lot of factors, and it all has to do with the economy. If we have a better job situation, job structures, and different things that the government could do, women could hold more jobs. And if the salary was better, if the pay was better in the Dominican Republic, I mean, the average pay in the Dominican Republic is $200 a month. You know,
Mm.
so if a lot of women, especially from poor neighborhoods and small towns, depend on men. Maybe not in the main city in the Dominican Republic and Santiago and other places, but from smaller towns and poor neighborhoods, they depend on men. So men know this. So men get away with having different women, with taking having different homes, taking care of different women, and
Yeah.
they get away with a lot of things, with beating women. And a lot of people come from poverty, so they come from homes where there's a lot of brothers and sisters, and women. A lot of young women don't want to be in that environment. They want to have their own thing. So if a guy, even if he's way older, is going to come and sit you in an apartment and pay your rent, or something of that nature, build you a house, um, you're going to be okay with that, even if you got to take some crap along with it, because you don't want to be in a house with all your sisters and brothers back where your parents are poor. You want to better yourself, and it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's the situation a lot of young girls find themselves in. And
It is.
actually, I found out long ago that uh, was it that they finally banned marriage with like young teenagers? Did you hear about that? This was like maybe a month or two ago.
It's gradually gotten better. The whole age thing, and banning
Yeah.
that, it's gotten a lot better, and it's been getting better for years. Everything that we're talking about has been gradually getting better, definitely
Yeah.
throughout the years.
Mhm.
And so they also have that. They also have the laws that if a woman lives with you for a certain amount of time, I forgot what's the minimum. I forgot if it's a year or two.
Mhm.
It could be 3 or 4, but I forgot right now. If she's living with you in that house, she's part owner of that house
Mhm.
automatically. I think it's a year. I forgot right now. So there have been laws that gradually have gotten better, but they've taken a long time. But these things still happen. I mean, people don't officially get married, but they do take young women, especially from smaller towns and poor neighborhoods, even if they don't marry them, and it continues to happen regardless. But it's getting better, and I'm confident that it is going to get better.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Definitely.
Okay.
Like I said, our culture has so many positive things, so many good things. You know, we get along in DR like crazy. Everybody's always partying. Everybody's always happy, and I mean, you know, I don't know if for the most part, but you know, it's a party culture. That's what I mean by happy. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to go to DR is to have fun, and to go to DR is to enjoy a lot of things that like eating when you go to those small towns, eating natural foods and just spending time and kind of like in the middle of nature, but still kind of like city life.
Yeah.
It's great. Here it's just like mostly city or mostly small town. Over there,
Right.
you get the best of both worlds. You know, you could be at the river, you could be at the beach, you can be in the middle of the city, and in minutes you could be somewhere in by a river drinking and cooking right next to the river with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some? I guess this kind of ties into what we were just talking about. But what is some progress you would like to see, not just among Dominicans in the DR, but also those of us in the Dominican diaspora, if you want to call it that? Or what are some ways in which you think we could even contribute or give back to the community in DR besides money? Because
Um,
the other thing I want to mention is I do feel like Dominicans in DR, they do pay a lot of attention to what the U.S. does and what we over here do. So I feel like in a sense we tend to influence a lot of the thinking and the stuff and like the trends and that goes on, especially among the youth in the island. So do you feel like that's something we could use to positively influence people down there?
Definitely, definitely. But see, a lot of people in DR and want to use certain want to be influenced to their advantage from the United States. Like they want to take some things but leave some others out. Well, that's not our like what we said earlier about certain struggles and certain things that are real. You know what I mean? So I think they're very aware of certain things that are going on here, but for whatever reason are not really paying attention to other things like the things that we have spoken about, the struggles of certain groups. But I think we can use, you know, it's hard for me to say anything that we could do for the community besides money, because I think that I guess getting involved politically, finding ways to get involved politically in the Dominican Republic, and I don't want to be a person who doesn't practice what he preaches, but I myself want to do that more to see if there's ways that we can get money injected into education into the Dominican Republic. But it's so hard because no one trusts politicians over there. You know, they have a history of being crooked. So finding a way. I mean, that's something that I've always, you know, wanted to do. Always hope to have a certain level of success in music or in any other business, because I do want to help over there with education. Like we definitely need to focus on that. We need to focus so that people would know what's going on outside of these. Because as proud as we are to be Dominicans, as proud as we should be to be Dominicans, and as great of a people that we are, it doesn't mean that we're better or more advanced in world views of how we see things and do things. So
Mm-hmm.
so to take that communication of how the world is advancing, you know, and I'm talking about the whole, you know, racial thing, gender thing, um, um, and just different ways that the world is advancing that we tend to stay behind sometimes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I think it's very important to spread education, and that's through money.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will now move on to my last question here, which is something I've had multiple women come to me about, which is advice on dating Dominican men, especially Dominican man. I figured I'd ask you for your inputs, and hopefully you'll keep it real. But no, I've had multiple non-Dominican women reach out to me or email me and be like, I'm considering dating this Dominican guy. I really like him, blah, blah, blah. But I'm kind of hesitant because, Dominican men have this rap for being, players and this and that. And I don't know if he's going to take me seriously. So what would you say? What is some advice you would give for someone wanting to date a Dominican man? And okay, let me backtrack first of all.
Yeah.
How do you view the dating norms within Dominican society? Because I do feel like it is kind of normalized for men to have multiple either partners or like wives in a way, even though they're not technically married to all. But like you mentioned, they be taking care of multiple women and multiple families, and a lot of women kind of just accept it. So how do you view that? Do you feel like there's truth to the fact that a lot of you guys are,
I think all those things are getting better. I think women are not like before. They're less willing to do that, or they're willing to do the same thing, which is not necessarily a good thing. But but it's empowering to some women, and I get that. So I think everything, like we said earlier, everything that we've been talking about has been changing little by little. And I do want to say here, and I'm sorry for backtracking a little bit, but I do want to say, even with the colorism and the featureism, because a lot of women in Dominican Republic like dark-skinned men and think dark-skinned men are handsome and better looking. So I don't want to leave that out. I'm just talking about something that's been happening for years, but it's slowly getting better. And I just want to educate people and let them know that it's not just some people that shouldn't call skin people handsome, darker skinned people pretty or beautiful, whatever. But I think that I just want to get out of their minds that being black or dark skin is not synonymous with being ugly. But anyway, going back, I think all of that is changing. It all goes back to the whole money thing. In DR, if a girl knows you're gonna take care of her, she's gonna bug you less. Now I'm generalizing, so I don't have a straight answer. DR is a very crazy place. DR is a very sexual place. There's a lot of a lot of fun going on in DR. You know exactly what I mean, and our viewers know too exactly what I mean. So people are just rolling from one person to the other. But again, I'm generalizing. But people out there, a lot of people out there are just having fun. They're just going with the flow. This person, then the next, and then the next, and then the next. But at this point, I think it's in both sides, men and women. As far as dating a Dominican man and the stigma that we carry as a halo or as a pair of horns.
Yeah, horns for sure.
I think I don't have a straight answer because really, and I'm gonna say this with all honesty, every person is an individual. Every person is an individual, and it is part of the culture that we party a lot, we dance a lot, we drink a lot. So we tend to get caught in meeting girls, party girls, and we tend to continue to switch them. Yes, you know what I mean. That is true, and it's been historically something that I've seen growing up, at least, throughout my lifetime.
Yeah.
But, every person is an individual. I know a lot of Dominican guys that just want to have a relationship, just want to find a girl that they like. You know what I mean? And so I don't think you could generalize that way. I don't think it's fair to. But we are, Dominicans. Just like a lot of other men, I think it's just men, period. I mean, Dominicans are very, we're very, with women, we like what we see. We have to like you physically. So if there's another girl that could give you some competition in whatever area we like physically, we might fall for it. You know what I mean? Now, in the culture of Dominican Republic, there has been a mistake passed down through generations that in the household they usually treat the men better than the son better than the sister. I have to admit to
Mhm.
that. It's like they cater to the son, and that all goes to like I said, the economical situation. Because they look at the man as someone who could help get them, help be a worker and help them in the future. The
Yeah.
woman is going to be taken by maybe an older guy or whoever by the time she's 18, maybe. You know what I mean? So they take care of the guy because he could become a baseball player. He could become this. He could become that. He could be the provider later on and take care of his parents in when their parents when his parents are older,
Mhm.
which I think is wrong because I've seen a lot of Dominican women take care of their whole family. A lot of Dominican women who travel, work hard, and take care of her parents and everybody else who was left behind. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
So so because of that, a lot of Dominican men are used to being treated, as we say, coñoñeria, which is
Yeah.
in a certain way,
Spoiled.
catered to, spoiled.
Mhm.
So Dominican men tend to gravitate to women that are going to treat them really nice, to women that are going to cook for them, that are going to make him feel like a little king when he gets home, and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So I have to admit that, but it is uh, on a person by person basis. It definitely is because me myself, I've been victim of that. Even though I gotta admit I was very much a player when I was like way younger and when I was growing up as a teenager and early 20s and all that. But I definitely um, seen it where I meet girls and I see them hesitant. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, because it's Dominicans and whatever, and
Mhm.
they get it wrong just because they meet you out dancing or because you're a musician or because you're Dominican and you carry yourself a certain way and you hang out with some people. They swear that you're not ready for a relationship or you're not the relationship type. So much
Mhm.
so that some of them are okay with going to bed with you, but they're not too sure about the relationship because as
Yeah.
bad of a reputation that we have in relationship, supposedly we have a good reputation when it comes to to intimacy. So
Mhm.
we're good to play around, but not good for relationships. So I think that's
Mhm.
beginning to backfire, especially on Dominicans who are not players.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Just treat everyone as an individual, and and I understand. I understand. Well, there's a certain percentage of people who do something is almost fair to generalize, but you got to continue to treat people as an individual. I mean, there's nothing else I could say. I don't have the answer, but I could share that experiences with you. Those experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good advice, I think. Like you said, I mean, there really isn't one straight answer. And I mean, that's kind of what I've tried to say to some of the women that have like reached out to me.
Yeah.
Really to kind of treat people on an individual basis. I mean, I do make it known, like, a lot of this is just part of the culture. It is. But that doesn't mean that every single person necessarily subscribes to that way of thinking or
Yeah.
that they're out here trying to mess with a whole bunch of women or whatever the case is.
Like we said, to bring it all together, it's part of the culture because over there's a lot of poverty. So if you're taking care of a girl, you can get away with that being your girl. But if you are able to take care of two other girls in two different neighborhoods or two different towns or cities, you get away with all of them being your girl because people come from extreme poverty. See, over here, they view everything through the lens of America, so of United States. So they don't understand what it is to be in a country where people come from such poverty, like I said, even living without tap water most of the time and
Mm-hmm.
without electricity half of the time. So a girl, just like women here, women want to get out. they want to explore the world. They want to create their own life. They don't want to stay within that family. So
Mhm.
plus they want freedom so they could party more and whatever. Because a lot of parents in DR can be very strict.
Yeah.
So it's that, you know, you're gonna fall into that just because of the financial situation of DR. You know, over here women can take care of themselves.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of changes things a little bit when you don't have to be financially dependent on a man.
It does change things. So we come from that culture, so that's what we get, that I can have this girl and this girl and that girl. But over here it changes because this girl, if she's not the only one, she don't want you, and this girl, she doesn't need your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we do carry that a little, but again, every person is an individual. I met, I, I, I would say, you know, I don't know the percentage, that is half and half. I met so many cool Dominican guys that are super cool, super humble, that don't even like girls at party too much, that always criticizing that, oh, those girls are always wearing that tight clothes and with fake butts and whatever. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm saying I've heard this with my own ears. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I would say half and half. There's a lot of cool Dominican guys. There really are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I know some of myself. I would say even in my own family, the men are kind of, when it comes to that.
Yeah,
Some of them are a little, now when it comes to that, but the others, they're loyal. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it feels like they kind of calm down after they come here too.
They come down what?
They calm down after they come here.
They do, especially if when they're get a little older, because you know the young Dominican guys are just like any youth. They're just gonna be jumping around, and some
Yeah,
of them have a steady girlfriend, but others are just partying, just like anybody
yeah,
else. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Everybody does it. White, blacks, you know, other Latinos. So at a
Hmm.
certain age, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely you notice when Dominican men begin to mature, they change. Plus, the system in this country, you know, it's hard. In DR, it's kind of easier to stay partying and drinking all the time, even though you're working. Over here, you
yeah.
have to pay these bills. You have to be
Right.
responsible at work and all this. So things change a little. So the whole life it veers you to more to the right thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, Ray, that was pretty much all the questions I had. We're now at an hour 45 minutes.
Oh, really? That was a lot.
Yeah.
Well, just so you see my the duality in my culture. I mean, do you see the stuff that's going on behind me to
Oh,
show?
yeah. Do you want to show what you got going on over there?
Well, a little, I guess. I mean, I have some of the hold on. Okay, so everybody, look at this. This is classic. Hermanos Rosario,
Yes.
when they first started. This is real vinyl stuff. All right. As you
Mm-hmm.
So, Hermano Rosario, if you know who Tonio Rosario is, you might not know, but in this picture is this guy right here.
Wow, he's so young there.
This is my life, like the whole Dominican culture, music. Everybody knows who this icon is, and
The
Majimbe.
yeah.
Yes,
My
a
dad
lot,
has that too.
a lot of these vinyls are signed. Also, I need
Mm.
to share some more stuff. Johnny Ventura, el rey del merengue. Come on.
Wow.
Johnny Ventura, please, man. This guy is el caballo. El caballo.
Yeah.
Man. I have freaking Sergio Vaz, El Zafiro, all
Nice.
original vinyls. Like I said, some of these are signed and um autographed.
Mm-hmm.
And craze of this stuff. Craze of
Wow.
this stuff. One more. Sandy Reyes. That's a beast. If you don't know who that is, look him up. That guy has a beautiful voice. And then up here, oh, La Coco Van. Oh my God, La Coco Van. With my guida and my tambora. My
Yeah.
guida and my Up here, we have, come on, Cool J volume. Please. This is classic stuff. Ice Cube, Slick Rick, Run DMC, Daddy Kane, and
Wow.
all these crates and storage boxes down here are full of more vinyl, mostly hip hop, then merengue, some salsa, and whatever. You know, I'm all over the place with it. You guys,
Mm-hmm.
please go check out my page, Instagram. You can
Yes.
go ReyCruz, in Spanish, ReyCruz 305, ReyCruz 305, or the actual IG address, which is RYE in the word truth. RyeTruth. All right. Please look me up so you can see all the stuff that I do. Actually, I believe I'm the originator of bilingual in English dembow. I've been doing that for a few years. I actually do English dembow, which is Dominican dembow, and I think I was also the first one to do merengue trap, to do trap like styles on top merengue. So you guys look me up. All right.
Do you want to direct people to your YouTube as well?
Yeah, my YouTube is the same. It's basically RyeTruth. ReyTruth. You can find it, or ReyCruz 305. ReyCruz 305. ReyCruz. That's like Spanish in Espanol. Like Kim
Yeah.
Cross 305. Yep. So you
Mm-hmm.
guys could go to my YouTube channel. You guys could go to my Instagram if you're interested, and just check out what I do. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, so to everyone watching, definitely go check out his Instagram, his YouTube, which again, I'll post the links to both of those in the comments under this video. So Rey, thank you again for doing this interview. I think you shared a lot of valuable information, both from the American perspective and the Dominican perspective. Thank you for your little dating advice at the end. I hope that, yeah, people enjoy it. Yeah.
Y todos los tigres dominicanos, que lo que, toda la gente dominicana, que lo que, todas las mujeres dominicanas, díganme a ver, vayan a chequear la música mía, los quiero de corazón, ustedes son míos, míos de corazón, de verdad. No quiero que nadie se sienta ni se ofenda mal por toda la vaina que yo dije. Yo solamente estoy diciendo las cosas que son real, pero no de un punto de vista de ofender a nadie, sino de ciertas cosas que tal vez tenemos que mejorar, que nos van a hacer mejores personas, yo creo, como país, como raza, lo que sea. Bendiciones y gracias por soportarme.
All right, guys, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll check you on my next video. Bye.